15 reasons moving to Mexico might not be right for you. Number one is the noise. Mexico is loud. Between the fruit and vegetable stands, notoriously loud. They love jamming out the music. Just to let you know, you can get some fruit and vegetables right here. Between the dogs barking at night, the vendors honking their horns, letting you know what they're selling. If election day is coming up, people blasting their speakers, and Mexicans love to party. Music, parties going all night long, holidays. There are noise laws, rarely enforced, but Mexicans love to have a good time. Music coming from all the bars, somebody's house. If you're not into mariachi music or Mexican music, you might have a hard time adjusting to that. It is a lot of fun, great parties, but it's just a loud country. Number two is the bugs. I used to live in Minnesota. We used to say mosquitoes were our state bird. You come down here, Minnesota has nothing on this. We have 3 cans of bug spray on our patio furniture right now. But between the mosquitoes, the geckos, the iguanas, spiders, snakes. You ever seen a whip scorpion? They will freak you out. They get in your house. Regular scorpions. The list goes on and on. So if you're not used to a few critters here and there, Mexico might not be for you. Now let me start this out by saying Mexico is right for us. So nobody needs to be a hater and say go back to where you came from. We're residents now. We plan to live here for the rest of our lives or as long as we can. Mexico is beautiful. The pros certainly outweigh the cons. But there are some things that you really need to get used to. And it might be hard for some people to adjust to. Number 3, crime, corruption, and scams. By now, a lot of you have probably heard about the 4 Americans that were kidnapped. A couple of them were killed, unfortunately. That does not happen all the time. It does not happen in every place in Mexico. But if things like that scare you, that may be a reason not to come. In fact, the cartels actually handed over the suspects to the police and apologized for it. They do not want to mess with Americans. They just want to be able to get their drugs across the border. Corruption, you hear about police corruption, that is the case. That is getting much, much better. Now, mostly just a few pockets in the area along the west coast, Mexico City, and it can happen in Cancun too. Fortunately, it's never happened to us. Scams, they do happen. I showed you the mustard in the store. That's an old trick. Guess what? If somebody comes up to you and tells you, oh my goodness, you have mustard on the back of your shirt, do not let them help you wipe it off. They are going to pickpocket you. We live in abject poverty down here, and sometimes that can happen even to the best of us. ATMs, another big one. Use the ATMs that are located at the banks like this one. Try not to use the ones that are sitting out in front of the store. They're pretty easy for scammers to put a little thing on there where they can steal your information. And you hear the noise? It's part of the noise thing I was talking about. Crime, corruption, scams, they definitely happen down here. If that scares you more than it should, Mexico might not be right for you. Number 4, the food and beer selection might not be what you're used to. Pretty limited selections down here on their alcohol. If you want to find things like sour cream, ranch dressing, things like that, pretty much impossible to find. Finding some kind of offcuts, the ones that you don't really see in the States. You're not seeing much for like hams or turkeys or things like that. You're seeing some completely different cuts that are a little bit more affordable. But meat, again, is one of those products down here that is just a little bit more expensive than you would think. Number 5, Mexico is not as cheap as you think. Sure, rent prices can be half or even as low as a third of what you might pay in some places in the United States. But food, fruits and vegetables are pretty cheap, but meat, more expensive than it is in the United States. Electronics can be a lot more expensive there in the United States. Everything that comes into Mexico automatically gets a 16% VAT tax or a value-added tax. Consider it like a state sales tax that's added into it. So whatever you're paying in the US, you can almost count on adding 16% to that price unless it's grown right here in Mexico or made right here in Mexico. Some things are not nearly as cheap. One thing I find really disingenuous, you see a lot of videos on how to live in Mexico for $1,200 a month or $1,500 a month. You can, if you don't want to live in the places you're thinking of retiring to, and you don't have much of a social life. My wife and I, we have some vices. We like to go out for dinner. We like to have some cocktails. We like to have fun. We like to go see bands. If you actually want to live in a place that is fairly close to the standards you're used to, and you want to go out and you want to have a good time and you want to live life in Mexico, be prepared to spend a lot more money than what you were thinking or what some people say you can get by with. Number 6, as most of you know, you can't drink the water in Mexico. That's very true. You can use it to shower, to bathe with, to do your dishes with even. Some people even brush their teeth with it and wash off their fruits and vegetables. We're a little tighter than that. But otherwise, your drinking water comes basically in 5-gallon jugs, just like this. They're heavy. You have to buy them each week, or you can go down to stores and pick them up yourself or have them delivered. But they're heavy, they're awkward. It's not as simple as just turning on a tap. If you think that's going to bother you, that may be another reason not to move to Mexico. Number 7, bathrooms. There are very few public bathrooms in Mexico. If you are lucky enough to find one like this one here in our Central Park, you will have to pay to use it. You will not find bathrooms in convenience stores like Oxxo's or 7-Elevens. You have to pay to use the bathroom. You have to pay extra for toilet paper. Sometimes you do find them very dirty. Sometimes you can't flush your toilet paper. You have to put it in the garbage can. Sometimes they don't even have toilet seats. So you're doing the squat method. So if that bothers you, maybe Mexico isn't for you. Number 8, there's no real mail service in Mexico. Everything's either delivered electronically, or maybe it's stuffed in the front door of your house, or maybe you just got to figure it out. But there's no mail service. There's DHL, Amazon is great. But you might have to look things up. You can pay things online. You can stop down at an Oxxo and pay it. It's pretty convenient actually and pretty slick. But if you're expecting to check your mailbox every day and seeing a postcard from your niece or nephew, it's not going to happen in Mexico. It's not the way it works. Number 9, you're on Mexican time. We knew this. We were prepared for this. But you can never be completely prepared for this. We tried to have a bar built for our backyard. I called 4 different carpenters to build this. Only one of the 4 even actually showed up. He was gonna give me a quote that afternoon. 2 weeks later, and several phone calls later, I still didn't have a quote. We ended up getting our bar built by a guy from a half hour away, and we did the best we could with that. Trying to get our internet hooked up. We had regular internet, but we tried to switch over to fiber optic, and we got an email right away saying that they would be there in a few days. A few weeks later, we still had an email saying they'd be there in a few days. So, if you don't have patience, and you can't get a lot more patience than you ever thought you had, maybe Mexico, not for you. Number 10, speaking Spanish. I am not talking about being able to say hola, or ordering a beer, or asking where the bathroom is. You need to know a lot more Spanish to get around. Now, if you're in the areas along the Riviera Maya or Cabo, places like that, you can probably get by. But if you truly want to live in Mexico, experience Mexican culture, experience Mexican life, you really need to learn a lot more Spanish. You want to know what the people's talking at the next table over from you. You don't know what they're saying. You want to be conversational. We had the top 100 phrases down and things like that. But you know what? You get on a phone call and somebody starts going off on Spanish, you get confused real easy. Our maintenance guy, super nice guy, doesn't speak a word of English. He has a very strong Spanish accent, speaks very fast. We cannot understand a word that guy's saying. Google Translate helps, things like that. But you know what? If you truly want to get comfortable in Mexico, don't just go to the expat meetups and meet 10 other people that look just like you. Learn more Spanish. If you can't, or you're not willing to learn a little bit more Spanish, maybe Mexico, not for you. Try getting a wheelchair around this. If you have mobility issues, possibly you might not want to move to Mexico. You want to freak someone out? Bring somebody from OSHA, or just an engineer, or just anybody with OCD, and have them walk some of these sidewalks for a day. If they don't trip, they're certainly going to lose their mind. Another thing we absolutely love is when people support us through Buy Me a Coffee, just like Jeff and Sue did this week. Thank you very much. We couldn't be doing this without your support, so we really appreciate it. You, others who've supported us through our first 8 months or whatever and stuff, and then all the times we've been down here. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you much. If you want to help out, just click on our banner page on Buy Me a Coffee and you can help us out too. But Jeff and Sue, hats off to you. Number 12, the internet. When we first got down here, we didn't have the internet for a couple weeks. You want to get to know your spouse? Try not having the internet, not being able to watch TV for a couple weeks. There's, you need internet. We finally got the internet after a couple weeks, and guess what? It was the old style. It was very slow. And you're kind of grouped together, so during the day it might not be so bad, but then in the evenings when you're trying to watch TV, it's buffering non-stop. You can't watch a show. You need super fast upload and download speeds like we do. It was a big struggle. Finally, they had fiber optic hooked up in our neighborhood, so we signed up for that. Again, Mexican time, took us a long time for that. Now, happy to report, we have a great internet speeds. In fact, when we went home over the holidays back to Minnesota, I was frustrated with how slow the internet was back in the States. So, but our neighborhood, lucky enough to have fiber optic, some don't. You may get blazing fast. You may be wanting to send smoke signals because you never know about the internet. So if Mexico's for you, make sure you check that out. Lucky number 13, driving in Mexico. This is an absolute nightmare. If you've watched our videos, you've seen some crazy stuff from the roundabout of death to the fact that you really don't need a driver's license down here. You just need to give a blood sample and you pass. There's no written, there's no driving. You just get a license once you turn 18 and it shows. From a very small little area like this, you can see how crazy the traffic can get. Like I said, the roundabout of death. Get on the highway, the 307, people doing half the speed limit, people doing double the speed limit. Blinkers and changing lanes, things like that. That is as willy-nilly. It is white glove when you're driving. And if you get off the big highways or out of the towns, you go into a little small remote town, guess what? Topes, little speed bumps, all over the place. Some aren't that well marked. You hit one going faster than you should, your car will let you know. You want to make a living down here, be like a frame adjuster, because that's got to be a good one. Right down to the dogs in these small towns. There'll be dogs laying in the middle of the road. You drive up on them, they may lift their head and look at you. They're not moving. You have to drive around the dogs. They're just laying in the streets, just staying out of the heat or enjoying the heat. Driving in Mexico, that is a story all by itself. That alone could be a reason to make you not want to live in Mexico. Number 14, the weather. Is it beautiful in Mexico? Absolutely. 300 plus days a year of sunshine. Gotta love it, right? Most of the time, absolutely. But in the summertime, it gets hot. Think middle of Florida, middle of summer hot with the humidity where it's over 100 degrees every day. During the wet season, you may go 2, 3, 4 days with nothing but rain. Chance of hurricanes now and then along the shores. Middle of the country might have some earthquakes. All in all, it is absolutely beautiful, but it can get hot, it can get humid, and if your power goes out on a hot day and you don't have electricity for 2, 3 days, it can get pretty miserable. And number 15, it's very hard to work in Mexico. We talked about the cost of living can be a lot more here than what you'd think, but it's also very hard to get a job. You have to get a special work permit, and if a Mexican can do the job, you're not going to get that job. You can start your own business, but you got to remember the minimum wage here is just over $1 an hour. So $2, $3 an hour might be all you're going to get. And a bonus one is the sargasso. Everybody dreams of moving to Mexico, living on the beach. Well, guess what? Living on the beach costs a lot of money. Way more than people make it sound like on some of their videos. You can live away from the beach for a lot less, but the big problem here is sargasso. It used to only come in the summer. It only started 10, 15 years ago. Now we're actually a couple months away from sargassum season starting, and you can see how bad it is already. They have ships out cleaning it up, they have buoys out to stop it, and this is already at shore 2 months before we should have sargassum. This will be here until this fall. If you don't like sargassum on your sandy beach, Riviera Maya, the Gulf area, might not be for you. And as always, if you like the information we've given you or the places we've shown you, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. We really appreciate it. Share our videos, let everybody know what we're doing and what we try to bring you. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Leave something in the comments. We personally respond to every single comment we get. So please enjoy us, share along as we bring you our life in Puerto Morelos and in Mexico. And even though Mexico to live might not be right for you, it is for us. For 3 Suitcases, thanks for watching.